are you? I think you still have that microphone problem, my friend.
Yeah.
Every time you do it, you're having the same challenge. So hopefully you figure it out one day.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Even like I mean, Zoom by default it takes AirPods when I wear them, but Google Meet somehow it goes to the default microphone, MacBook microphone.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I wonder if other people will show up. But Venkata, you have a topic you wanted to talk about? I have some on my own, by the way, but I'm curious if you have some.
No, I don't. So I have to work on something, but I haven't got time. Got busy with a couple of things.
Yeah, know how that goes. But then maybe I'll just ask a question myself. I think I put it in the chat somewhere earlier. In essence, the question is very simple. What, according to you guys, is a data product? And let me give some context around it, because we can all take the book of Samak and say, well, here are the definitions of a data product. But when we talk with organizations in practice, so we're in consulting, and when we talk with clients, they all have their own definition of data product. And very often what they call a data product is what we would call an output port of a data product, right? So they don't consider the code or the infrastructure or the automation or any of that to be part of the data product. The data product are the collection of tables that you deliver to the outside world. So I wonder if we're the exception to the rule here, and you say no, or do you have similar discussions in the organizations that you guys work?
I'll start, and then Venkata, let me know what you think too. So this is standard definition, but fundamentally, you have a boundary, so you know what's in, and that boundary allows you to know how to get stuff in and how to get stuff out. So that's the simplest definition. And if you have that, then you have the ability to layer on this cool concept called ownership. And if you have ownership, what you can do is start to empower people to make decisions. And that's the core to me. So it actually has very little to do with whether you have an operational store, an analytics store, a data mart, a data warehouse, a star, blah, 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 blah. It's all inside the boundary. And what you do inside the boundary is what the owner gets to decide based on what the consumers want to get out and what the providers want to push in. So the way we typically see it in the analytics world, almost all the time we see jobs from dbt, for example. In the operational world, almost all the time it's APIs or event streaming. To me, that's largely irrelevant. Those are the mechanics of the implementation. But if you understand the boundary, the owner, and the fact that stuff comes in, stuff goes out, now what you have is a data product. And once you have that, you can layer on things which are completely distinct from a data product, things like data contracts that govern the inputs to the data product. So my analogy, by the way, is a factory and a supply chain. So I have a factory, okay, that's the data product. And stuff comes in from many, many different suppliers. And I negotiate a contract with my factory and supplier A, B, which C, D. Each of those contracts, by the way, would be probably different, likely because of service level expectations, maybe cost, but more likely than not, there's different stuff coming in. This supplier provides engines, this one provides transmissions for our car plant. Same thing with data. This provider provides customer data, this one provides account data, this one provides product data, etc. So every contract governs what comes in, okay, and what goes out. Now, you may have a variety of internal data contracts inside, but they're largely an internal mechanism and capability, because by definition, it happens inside the box. Nobody cares. As long as you maintain the contract, the supply chain construct, again, between what goes in and what goes out. And if you have that boundary, that becomes easy. If you have the owner, the implementation of that can actually work, and the governance actually works very well. So there's a lot of discussion around how data contracts are data products. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think it's wrong. It's different. It's contrary to any analogy that one could possibly make. And I always find that there's real world analogies that have been stood the test of time, hundreds of years, decades perhaps, are great role models for what we ought to aspire to, or at least learn from. Anyway, a little bit of a rant, but that's my definition.
Okay. Venkata, is it similar with your organization, or is it completely different?
I mean, in the organization currently where I am, I'm the one who started coining this term because the reason is that there was no ownership on some of these. I didn't go this at this broader level as Eric said. If you take the example of like what he said, like you take the whole factory as a product and you have a supplier sending the raw material, right? And I took the analogy of this factory. From this factory, you are producing a different products, right? Output, right? Various products are coming out, and various types of raw materials are coming in to produce these products. I took that kind of analogy and I said, like, who is the owner for this? Who wants to consume this product, right? What exactly you're looking for, right? Where is that? And then where is the data coming from? Is it from supplier A, supplier B, supplier C, or just one supplier, or how you are transforming the data? Where are these rules for transformation? What kind of data you are receiving? What kind of transformation you needed? And then what is your vision of end product? What exactly you are looking in your end product, right? Where are those put all these into a kind of a contracts, right? On what exactly you need, and then go back to the sources of this data, and then make sure that the data what we are receiving is of the quality what we are expecting. If there is anything required, then that goes into the transformation.
But then, Venkata, according to you, if I understand correctly, what is a data product is what comes out of the factory, or no?
Right.
Yeah. Well, according to Eric, the factory is a data product, right? If I understand
Right,
correctly.
exactly. That's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so here's how my approach would marry with yours, Venkata. Is product is obviously in the eye of the beholder, but I used to work at a car plant very, very early in my career, so it was a very long time ago. But what ended up coming out of the factory were the product category was a car. The actual product, there it was General Motors. So we had Chevrolets, which were, if you're a Chevrolet dealer, that was the product. And I had Pontiac, and if I was a Pontiac dealer, that was a different product than Chevrolet, and they were competing products, and that's the different topic. I would have Buick products coming out. So and each of those were different. They were not identical. Yes, they were all in the category of cars, but some cost $100,000 and some cost $20,000. So there's a wide range of different products that come out. So it depends on your definition and what you want to actually call a product. To me, I'm closer to Zamak's definition, where there's a boundary and there's data inside it, and that boundary constitutes the data product. And what comes out of it is what the consumers actually want. And you as a data product owner have to make the transformations of the inputs to actually create the products, which may in turn become other data products. But you're providing the consumption, the unit of consumption for the people that consume the data product. Again, this is where we get into lots of trouble, where everybody calls because of the ambiguity around what a product is, it could be anything. But I think it's actually very important to have a clear definition of what we as a community actually believe a data product happens to be, if only so that we can actually make the right recommendation and answer what I think is a very simple but not obvious answerable question that Chris asked.
No, the essence here is captured in this discussion, because it's exactly the kind of discussions we're having at clients. Although I have to admit, Eric, you explain this way better than I do.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to consult for you, Chris. But I am in a very, very different time zone. So
yeah. So we need to arrange schedules. No, but in essence, I also believe that data product is the factory, right? And then what comes out is a series of widgets. And those widgets are your output ports or whatever. You can consume those widgets from a downstream, whatever you want to do with that, right?
I like that definition where what comes out is a widget, which is distinct from the product. I think that's a great analogy, great way of stating it.
Yeah. But then I'm going to go one step further there, Eric. If you say, well, for me, it's important that we draw a boundary and can put an owner on it. Stuff comes in, stuff comes out. By that definition, I could claim a dashboard is also a data product. There's data coming in and there's charts coming out, and there's an owner.
Yes. So, and in fact, it may be. I'll give you an example. So, if I have a customer data product which has customer information, okay, and I have an account data product which has feeds information, uses customer. The account being the union between a customer and a product, and the account is the agreement that they, at least in banking, that they purchase something. One is what you have is a network, a mesh of upstream and downstream data products that interact to facilitate the needs of a consumer. So a dashboard exactly fits the definition. It just happens to have a slightly different usage pattern, and it's based off of many downstream products, which may not be data marts or data warehouses or what have you, but they are still data, and they still get sourced. And as you highlighted, there's an owner who needs to take data from different constituents, different providers. Yes, it may not be a big data warehouse, but they still take data. They do some transformations. Maybe they're modest, maybe they're not. Typically, they're going to come up with cubes or any other Tableau reports or what have you, and then they offer it to consumers. Those ports may not be APIs, and they may not be DBT jobs. Maybe they are other user interfaces or BI user interfaces that are embedded, if you will, offered by the data product to actually view it and consume it. But it fits the exact definition. It has data inside it. There's transformations that happen that are largely oblivious to the people who provide the data and the people who consume it, but you still have the same definition. So in my way of looking at it, it is a data product. It by definition, it consumes data, it transforms it and makes it available to different constituent audiences. The confusion people always say is, and this is kind of in the world of AI, it's very, very different. Everybody seems to attach a data product with a database. Okay, it is not that in fact the case. If you could stretch the definition of saying a vector store is a database, but it's not at all the same way. You're talking about SQL and all that stuff. In fact, if you look at AI, okay, it uses images, it uses voice, largely stored in files or in content management systems, and the database is nowhere to be found. Okay, yet each of those are data products. So we have a very either limited or biased perspective on what a data product is. Data can be anything. Okay, it could be literally anything in any format. It does not have to be a database, a data warehouse, a data mart. It does not have to be on Snowflake. It does not have to be on DB2 if you're on the mainframe world or elsewhere. So anyway, that's my.
I just want to try to find the boundaries here. So where you say this isn't a data product anymore. So if I build a chatbot, I take as input a bunch of documents from SharePoint or whatever, and as an output, an interface to my users to ask questions about those documents. Is that a data product?
Yes. The data that serves the chatbot can be a data product. it happens to be as opposed to you're using a chat interface as opposed to BI or an API or something else, an event, listening to an event topic. It happens to be a way of consuming the data that the user happens to be comfortable with. Some of those users are technical users and may use APIs, but in this case, you have a chatbot. It communicates with an LLM, yes, but you typically so that LLM is part of the data product. It is part of the transformation that allows you to address the consumer need. So that LLM has data. It probably uses RAG, so it takes information from vector store, populates a context, so they can actually answer the user question. To me, there's at a general level, there's no difference between that and writing Python programs or DB2 pipelines inside the data product to transform it. There's no difference between the two at a general level. The technology and the approach is different, but if you're looking at an architecture abstraction, they're one and the same.
Okay. I'm curious, Venkata, is that the
Hey,
same?
we're working with this right now. So we deal with this all the time. Like we're heavily into the AI space, the agent space even more.
Yeah.
And what we've found is that the old definition, if all you are is a DBA, everything looks like you have the database hammer and everything looks like a database nail or a table nail. Once you get into AI and you see data coming in so many different formats, images, voice, audio, transcripts of audio, and marrying it with database capability, all of that makes you realize that the notion that we tend to have as data people is very, very limited. And I believe, I can't recall Zamak's how she wrote it, but I don't think she limited it to, well, actually she did. She said she focused on analytics data, which implies data warehouses. But in this day and age, I would argue the most valuable data is the unstructured data that's not in the databases today. Or at least the value of it is almost as valuable, if not more valuable, than the stuff we actually have today.
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I read the book, to be honest. But I think what Zamak said is that it has to have an output port, like produce a data set. It can be an unstructured data set, right? But it should be a data set that you output. And so not a dashboard, not a chatbot, not a, but it can be unstructured data in, LLM inside, and unstructured data out. I think that's fine according to her.
Yeah, if you look at it, but if you apply the chatbot example that you had, the chatbot is a user interface built in React or whatever. But if you look at almost every chatbot, it connects to data via an API, which happens to be the traditional view of looking at or one of the traditional views of looking at an output port for a data product.
Yeah. Venkata, I'm curious, is it the same in your organization? How are you looking at this?
Yeah. How you generate the output should not be a factor, right? Here we are using a LLM to generate the output, final end product, right? This LLM can be using your unstructured data, structured data, or whatever you feed to it, right? You should not, I think, confine this to a technology or a database or a format or anything of that sort. When it is generating an output which is consumed by someone or some other process, right? Then that I think we should consider as the product.
Got it.
Say in your example, like in a dashboard, there might be dashboard on the whole is a one product, right? But it may also have multiple sub-products within that, or you called it as like a widget, right? When I was working at a Chase a couple of years back, that CEO said, I want a dashboard for the people, doesn't matter where they log in from, whether from India, from US, from Middle East, Europe, somewhere, doesn't matter. I want to see a similar dashboard for all their work, what they are doing, right? Like then we were calling that time within the portal, and we were calling the small portlets. Each one will have a small portlet with the information required for that particular role,
Mm.
right? So here, if you take that, it's like a whole, your dashboard is a one product. And within the dashboard, you have certain subcategories of information. And for that also, you probably, in the back end, for one widget, you might be using a LLM, or some other, you might be using some other pipelines to produce that, right? So each one will be its own product. What do you guys think of that?
Maybe my opinion, I know you can both disagree later, but it's a whole new topic about granularity of data products. But I feel also in software that we are sometimes too quick in splitting up like one solution into multiple microservices because it's just cool to do microservices. And here, similar, I believe having one dashboard is a data product, but then splitting each chart and saying each chart is its own data product, that's only useful if there's actually different teams working on different parts of the dashboard. But if it's still the same team, then I don't care. Just that's one factory, guys. And maybe you have different parts of your factory, or you create different chart. I don't care how you do it. But if it's one team, one responsible, then it's one data product. The moment that finance fills in a chart and then marketing fills in another chart, those are actually, you could see as two data products, I think.
Yeah. See, there's obviously different schools of thought on the granularity of data products. My simple rule of thumb is that if I have such level of granularity that it costs me more to manage the intercommunication between the data products, then I've failed. The idea around the data product is to make us smarter and more, better, faster, cheaper, more efficient. So if we go to such a fine level of granularity that the decision making to make any decision requires interaction with 6 or 7 different people, you failed. So you need to think through the granularity, and I think that just comes through experience. I have one topic, and it may require waiting till the next session, but I'd welcome your feedback, Venkata and Chris, on this notion of what I call smart data products. So again, perhaps I'm a little bit biased. We're heavily into the AI agent landscape. And obviously, data products play a role. But we have this notion around smart data products where you have an LLM embedded into the processing of the data, into the transformation, into the ability more to consume the data than to ingest it. But obviously, the first thing is natural language access to the data product. That's trivial, simple, perhaps. But the thing that we're finding is there's a significant opportunity around agents doing some of the transformations or disambiguating the inputs or the outputs of the data product. So, for example, we're working with one group where a compliance document, a document comes in and it has a whole raft of stuff in it, and it comes from hundreds of different sources, and they're all, some send an email, some PDF, some it's a Word document, some it's this, some it's that, and you have to make sense of that in a reasonable fashion. And we use LLMs and agents to actually do that, as opposed to writing reams and reams of Python code to handle all the edge cases that you would have to if you wanted it, quote, deterministic. But we find things like agents accessing LLMs that look at a PDF, as opposed to using like PDF Plumber or some of the libraries, which they make significant errors. Simple things like a number has a space between 8 space, comma, 300, comma, 300. How do you deal with that? Well, you have an edge case, so you can write code around that, or you just send the PDF You transform it into an image, a PNG, and then you fire it off to OpenAI, and it magically comes up with, it tells you all the fields in there. It can put it into a JSON structure if you want. It's like magic. And it dramatically simplifies some, not all. We're not suggesting that you go from a deterministic pipeline that works to something that would be non-deterministic and may not work. But there's a subset of data, especially the unstructured image, audio, or PDF examples or anything like that, that there is a significant opportunity to make the data processing inside of the transformations inside a data product much better, faster, cheaper, using LLMs, and we happen to use agents, which are they're the unit of mobility for LLMs, if you will. So I don't know if you guys have thought of that in the few minutes that we have left. Is this a worthwhile topic? Is this something that is of interest to you? Because I'd be happy to talk about it next session, if that makes sense.
Venkat, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, yes, Eric, definitely. I think that is the way eventually AI and agentic AI, as it's already gained momentum, and of course there are lots of development still happening. So automation is going to be a key factor, right? Now these LLMs, they become better and better in doing that kind of data capture and transformation, right? Definitely, this is going to be a very important topic going into the future. Yeah.
I think I even want to add something to that. So we're in consulting. Some of our clients are early adopters. Some of them are laggards. The ones who jumped on this bandwagon the earliest, they now come back with, they call it an AI soberization phase. I don't even know if that's real English, what I say here. But what I mean is that they invested like good money in these kind of solutions. And not a lot of it is returning any value. Yeah. I am a big fan of what you say, Eric, and I fully agree. So there is a lot of value to be found in agentic AI, and I think it's going to be the future, but it's a lot harder than it looks. So yes, definitely the topic is interesting for our next session.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick highlight, and then we can break.
Yeah.
What we find is exactly the same thing, Chris. And it's the people who built what they call science experiments, which are cool little toys. But I'm going to presume if you're building toys without business value, that's a very different problem you have. But if you're building toys that have built value and you're not able to realize the value, here's what we see. Okay, if you try and put typical agent that's built in a Python file, it's all in one file effectively, even though you import it, and it runs in you do Python and it runs on your laptop. Okay, here's what's going to happen when you try and put that into production. The enterprise architect's going to laugh at you because it's not enterprise grade. The security person is going to say, "Not over my dead body," are you going to get this into production, because it's not enterprise grade. So what we do is that's our tagline is enterprise grade agents for an enterprise grade agent ecosystem. And I believe strongly that Andy Jassy is right, where he said there's going to be 8 billion agents doing stuff. Maybe not next year, but in 10 years there will be. Jensen Huang says there's going to be 100 million in every enterprise. Even if they're 1 million times wrong, you're going to have 10,000 to 100,000 of these things running around in the next few years in a given enterprise, at least the leaders. Maybe not the laggards, Chris, that you see. But in the leaders, you're going to start to see thousands of these things running around. If you want to get any of those into production, you have to think about, these are now enterprise grade. These are enterprise applications. They have to do all the same things that SAP did. It's secure, it's observable, discoverable, blah, 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 all that stuff. And if you haven't got that, you're building science experiments. Now, here's the unfortunate thing. Almost all the people building these things are data scientists who are very well-meaning, extremely smart. Some are geniuses. I work with some of them, but they do not know how to build enterprise-grade applications. So what you have is a toy that you have not invested into the capabilities. So when you try and do something with it, what happens? Well, they fail. The project does not, you spent your $100,000 to do your toy, but it's going to cost, you haven't planned for the $900,000 required to get it into production. That's what we see over and over again.
So let's dive
Yeah.
into that topic in the next session.
Excellent.
Yeah, I want to share
go
a
ahead,
small
Shankar.
blip
Yeah.
here. Yesterday, I happened to join one call with one of the healthcare companies' CIO's talk. So his idea on some of these automations using agentic AI, he said, like, okay, my data scientists or my team who are developing these prototypes. They are coming up with some products, but will I be able to put that into a production today? No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Right? Because definitely security is going to kill it. Enterprise
Yeah.
architecture team is going to kill it because it is not enterprise grade at this point of time.
Now, Venkata, I want you to keep that thought because I do have to run, and I think Chris does.
Me
So,
too.
let's just table that. Smart data products or agents. I'm writing a book
for
on it with
next week.
Riley, so I don't know if I'm considered an expert, but pretty close, I suppose. Anyway, I'll share some wisdom. Hopefully, it's wisdom at the next session. Guys, good talking with everybody. Look forward to talking again.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Venkata.
Have a good one.